The massive ship called the Harmony dropped out of hyperspace above Earth like a falling star. Inside the vessel, Ambassador Zethkar stared at the blue planet through the viewing port. His crystalline body reflected the light in rainbow patterns, as he sighed deeply. This was their last chance. For 30 years, the Galactic Council had traveled from world to world. They carried a simple message of peace and cooperation. They offered trade, knowledge, and friendship to any species willing to listen. But nobody wanted to listen. The Vorthan Empire had laughed at them. Weakness, their war chief had said. Only the strong survive in space. Then they had shot at the council ships. The mechanized collective had been worse. They simply deleted the council's messages without reading them. To the machines, organic life was too messy and emotional to be worth their time. The Skarn were the worst of all. These hunters had looked at the peaceful council members and seen only prey. They had chased council ships across 3 star systems, howling with excitement over their communication channels. Zethkar picked up the datapad containing Earth's information. Humans were young, barely 200 years in space. They fought wars among themselves. Their technology was primitive. Why would they be different from all the others? Ambassador, called Whisper from across the bridge, the gas cloud being floated in a containment field, colors shifting with emotion. We are receiving transmissions from the planet. Zethkar expected the usual responses: demands for tribute, threats of violence, orders to leave their space immediately. Instead, the translation system began playing something he had not heard in decades. "Welcome to Earth," said a human voice. "We are honored by your visit. Please accept our invitation to meet with our representatives." More voices joined in, dozens of them, all saying similar things. Scientists wanting to learn about alien life, leaders offering to host diplomatic meetings, children asking if the aliens wanted to be friends. "This must be a trap," said Commander Rixtal, the Council's security chief. His insect-like features twitched with suspicion. No species welcomes strangers without wanting something in return. But as their shuttles descended toward Earth, Zethkar saw something that made him doubt his own cynicism. Crowds of humans had gathered at the landing sites. They carried colorful banners with messages of welcome. Children held up drawings of what they thought aliens might look like. News reporters spoke excitedly into cameras about this historic moment. There were soldiers present, but they stood at respectful attention rather than pointing weapons. Scientists rushed around with translation devices and scanning equipment, trying to prepare for first contact. Government officials wore their finest clothes as if meeting the most important guests of their lives. Zethkar had seen many alien worlds, but he had never seen anything like this. No other species had ever looked at council ships and thought about friendship first. The shuttle landed in a field outside Geneva. As the doors opened, Zethkar stepped onto alien soil for what he hoped would not be the last time. A group of humans waited nearby, but they did not rush forward. They waited politely for the aliens to make the first move. A woman stepped forward. She was middle-aged with graying hair and kind eyes. "I am Dr. Sarah Chen," she said slowly, allowing the translation system time to work. "On behalf of humanity, we welcome you to Earth." Zethkar had given this same introduction speech hundreds of times to hundreds of species. Usually, he got through 3 sentences before being interrupted with demands or threats. This time, Dr. Chen listened to every word. She asked questions about the Council's mission, their journey, their needs. "You have traveled so far to bring peace to the galaxy," she said when he finished. "That must have been very difficult." No one had ever acknowledged the difficulty before. Most species assumed the Council traveled because they had nothing better to do. The simple recognition made something tight in Zethkar's chest loosen just a little. Over the following days, the human response continued to baffle the Council delegation. They were given comfortable quarters in a building created specifically for their visit. Human engineers had worked around the clock to create environments suitable for each species. Whisper received a chamber filled with gases from his home world. Rixtal got a room with the exact temperature and humidity of his desert planet. The humans asked for nothing in return. When Zethkar offered to share Council technology as payment for their hospitality, Dr. Chen shook her head. You are our guests, she said simply. Guests do not pay for their welcome. More confusing were the meetings themselves. Human leaders came prepared with questions, but not the kind the council usually faced. Instead of asking about weapons technology or territorial expansion, they wanted to know about alien cultures, languages, and customs. How do your people celebrate important events? Asked President Martinez during one session. What kind of music do you enjoy? What makes you laugh? The questions seemed pointless to Commander Rixtal, but Zethkar found himself answering anyway. He told them about Crystal Song, the way his people shared emotions through harmonic vibrations. Within hours, human musicians were working with physicists to create instruments that could produce similar sounds. When Whisper mentioned that his people communicated through color changes in their gas forms, human artists immediately began creating light displays to accompany his words. They wanted to understand, not to gain advantage, but simply because they found other life forms fascinating. The most shocking moment came during a dinner held in the council's honor. Zethkar had attended thousands of diplomatic meals, each one a careful dance of status and power. Human leaders sat wherever they could find space. They shared food freely and asked their guests to try local dishes. Children from a nearby school had been invited to meet the aliens and ask questions. Do you have families on your homeworlds? Asked a small girl with missing front teeth. Do you miss them? The question was so innocent, so completely divorced from politics or strategy, that Zethkar found himself telling her about the crystal gardens where his offspring grew. He had not spoken of home in years, not since the council's mission began. As the evening continued, something unprecedented happened. The council members began to relax. For the first time in 3 decades, they were not calculating threats or preparing for rejection. They were simply enjoying themselves. These humans are strange, Whisper said privately to Zethkar as they prepared for sleep. They act as if meeting new people is a gift rather than a risk. Zethkar thought about the children's drawings now hanging in his quarters. Crude pictures of aliens and humans holding hands under bright stars. Perhaps, he said slowly, they understand something the rest of the galaxy has forgotten. That night, as he settled into his crystalline rest cycle, Zethkar allowed himself to hope for the first time in years. Maybe their mission would not end in failure after all. Maybe, somewhere in this strange corner of space, they had finally found what they had been looking for all along. Outside his window, Earth's moon shone down on a world that had dreamed of meeting aliens for generations. Now that dream had come, true, and humanity had responded with the one thing the Galactic Council had never expected to find among the stars. They had found kindness. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the Geneva Conference Center as Dr. Sarah Chen prepared for another day of meetings with the Galactic Council. 3 weeks had passed since first contact, and each day brought new surprises. She found Ambassador Zethkar in the garden outside, his crystalline form catching the light like a living prism. He was listening to a recording of human music, his body humming softly in harmony with the melodies. Good morning, Ambassador, Sarah said, setting down 2 cups of coffee. She had learned that Zethkar's species could absorb certain human beverages through their crystal surface. Dr. Chen, Zethkar replied, his voice carrying musical undertones. I have been studying your Bach compositions. The mathematical precision combined with emotional expression is fascinating. My people communicate through crystal song, but we have never thought to combine logic with feeling in this way. Sarah smiled. This was exactly what made these aliens so remarkable. Instead of demanding human technology or resources, they wanted to understand human culture. The Galactic Council seemed genuinely interested in learning how different species thought and felt. Inside the conference center, the day sessions were already beginning. Human scientists, diplomats, and engineers filled the rooms, all eager to learn from their alien guests. Sarah had never seen such excitement in the scientific community. Professor Kim from Seoul National University was deep in conversation with Whisper, the gas cloud entity. The alien floated in his containment field, colors shifting rapidly as he spoke. Your atmospheric manipulation techniques could revolutionize our weather control systems, Professor Kim was saying. But more importantly, how does your species experience emotion without solid neural structures? This was typical of the human approach, Sarah had noticed. Yes, they were interested in alien technology, but they were equally fascinated by alien psychology, art, and philosophy. The council members seemed constantly surprised by questions about their personal experiences rather than their useful capabilities. Commander Rixtel, the insect-like security chief, stood in a corner looking uncomfortable. He was used to military meetings focused on threats and defenses. Instead, he found himself surrounded by human generals who wanted to discuss military honor, soldier welfare, and the ethics of warfare. Your species has codes of conduct even in battle? Rixtal asked General Morrison, his mandibles clicking with confusion. You limit your own effectiveness to protect non-combatants? Of course, General Morrison replied. What's the point of winning if you lose your humanity in the process? The concept seemed to perplex Rixtal. On his world, military efficiency was the only consideration. The idea that humans would handicap themselves for moral reasons was completely foreign to him. Dr. Chen moved through the various sessions, observing the cultural exchange taking place. In one room, human linguists worked with council members to develop better translation protocols. In another, artists collaborated on visual communication methods that could work across species barriers. The breakthrough moment came during a session on comparative governance. Ambassador Zethkar was explaining how the Galactic Council made decisions through consensus among member species. But surely some species have more influence than others, asked Secretary of State Williams. The more powerful civilizations must dominate the discussions. That is exactly the problem, Zethkar admitted, his crystalline body dimming with sadness. Many species join the council only to gain advantage over their neighbors. They do not truly cooperate. They compete through other means. Dr. Chen leaned forward. What if cooperation was the goal itself, rather than a tool to achieve something else? The room fell silent. Zethkar's form began to glow brighter as he processed this idea. You mean, working together because unity is valuable, not because unity brings power? Exactly, said President Martinez, who had been listening from the back of the room. We've learned from our own history that competition has its place, but so does genuine partnership. Sometimes the goal is simply to build something better together than either side could create alone. Wisp-Air's colors shifted to patterns the humans had learned indicated excitement. This is why your species welcomed us so readily. You see other beings as potential partners, not potential threats or resources. The statement hit like a thunderbolt. For 30 years, the Galactic Council had approached species with offers of mutual benefit, but they had always framed it in terms of what each side could gain. Humans had responded with enthusiasm, not because they saw opportunities for advantage, but because they saw opportunities for friendship. Over the following days, this realization transformed the nature of their discussions. Instead of formal diplomatic negotiations, the sessions became genuine collaborations. Human engineers worked with council members to design better life support systems for long space voyages, not because either side demanded it, but because they enjoyed solving problems together. Dr. Chen found herself having late-night conversations with Zethkar about the nature of consciousness and the meaning of existence. These talks served no practical purpose, but both species found them enriching in ways that transcended politics or economics. The turning point came when the humans proposed something unprecedented. Instead of signing a formal treaty with specific terms and obligations, they suggested creating an ongoing partnership with no defined endpoint and no strict rules. You want an alliance based on trust rather than contracts? Commander Rixtal asked, his skepticism clear. We want a friendship, Dr. Chen replied simply. Friends help each other when help is needed. They share good times and support each other. Through difficulties, they don't need to write down rules about it because the care is genuine. Ambassador Zethkar was quiet for a long moment. In 3 decades of diplomacy, no species had ever offered friendship without conditions. The Vorthon Empire had demanded tribute. The mechanized collective had required technological exchanges. The Skarn had seen only weakness to exploit. "Your species continues to surprise us," he finally said. "We came here expecting another negotiation. Instead, we have found something we did not know we were looking for." "What's that?" asked President Martinez. "Hope," Whisper answered, his colors shifting to the warm gold patterns that indicated deep contentment. "For 30 years we have tried to convince species to work together. We thought we were failing because our message was wrong. Now we realize we were simply talking to the wrong species." That evening, as the various delegations prepared for a sleep, Dr. Chen stood on the balcony of her hotel room looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there were civilizations that had rejected the Galactic Council's vision of peace. But here on Earth, that vision was taking root. The humans had not just welcomed the aliens, they had embraced them as family. And in doing so, they had shown the Council something that 3 decades of diplomatic failure had obscured. Their dream of galactic cooperation was not naive idealism. It was simply ahead of its time. Until now, they had never found a species mature enough to understand that true strength came not from domination, but from the courage to care about others as much as you cared about yourself. As Sarah watched, a shooting star streaked across the sky. She made a wish not for humanity, but for all the species scattered among the stars. She wished that someday they might all discover what humans and the Galactic Council were building together: peace. The news spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Hyperspace communication networks carried the shocking report to every corner of civilized space. The Galactic Council had found sanctuary among the primitive humans of Earth. On the bridge of the Vorthan Imperial flagship Dominator, War Chief Kresh studied the intelligence reports with growing anger. His massive frame, covered in battle scars, trembled with rage as he read about humans treating council members as honored guests. "Impossible," he growled to his subordinates. "No species is that foolish. These humans must be planning something." But the spy reports were consistent. Earth's governments had opened their borders to alien visitors. Human scientists shared their research freely. Military leaders offered joint training exercises instead of demanding weapons technology. Most disturbing of all, human children were learning alien languages just to communicate better with their new friends. "They show weakness," declared Admiral Thakron, Kresh's second-in-command. "This disease of cooperation must not be allowed to spread. Order the fleet to prepare for departure." Similar conversations were taking place across hostile space. The Skarn hunting packs saw an opportunity for a grand hunt, tracking both council members and their human protectors. The mechanized collective calculated that any species willing to associate with inefficient organic cooperatives represented a threat to machine logic and should be eliminated. But on Earth, humanity's response to the approaching danger shocked everyone, including themselves. President Martinez stood before an emergency session of the United Nations. Representatives from every nation filled the assembly hall, their faces grim but determined. Behind them, on massive screens, Admiral Rodriguez displayed tactical information about the alien fleets heading toward Earth. 3 separate hostile forces are approaching our solar system, Admiral Rodriguez reported. The Vorthan Empire brings 47 warships. The Skarn hunting fleet has 32 vessels designed for maximum destruction. The mechanized collective is sending an automated death fleet of unknown size. Murmurs of fear rippled through the assembly. Earth's entire space fleet consisted of only 15 ships, most of them designed for exploration rather than warfare. They were facing impossible odds. Ambassador Zethkar rose from his seat in the diplomatic section. His crystalline form reflected the lights in the chamber, creating rainbow patterns on the walls. "The Galactic Council takes full responsibility for bringing this danger to your world," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "We will depart immediately to lead these fleets away from Earth." The reaction was immediate and unanimous. Every delegate in the hall rose to their feet in protest. "Absolutely not," President Martinez declared. "You came here seeking peace and friendship. You found it. Now we defend it together." "But your species will be destroyed," Whisper protested, his gas form shifting to colors that indicated deep Distress. We are not worth such a sacrifice. Dr. Chen, now serving as Earth's first alien relations coordinator, stepped to the podium. That's where you're wrong, she said firmly. For generations, humanity has dreamed of finding friends among the stars. We finally have them, and we'll be damned if we let anyone take that away. The vote was overwhelming. Every nation committed to Earth's defense. More importantly, they committed to defending their alien guests with the same determination they would show protecting their own people. Over the following weeks, something unprecedented happened. Instead of panic, Earth experienced the greatest period of cooperation in human history. Old enemies worked together. Competing corporations shared their best technology. Scientists from every nation collaborated on defensive systems. The breakthrough came when Dr. Chen proposed full technological integration with the Galactic Council, not to gain military advantages but to create better protection for everyone involved. Ambassador Zethkar was hesitant. Council technology is meant for peaceful purposes, he explained. We do not create weapons. Then we won't create weapons, Dr. Chen replied. We'll create shields. We'll create communication systems that let our forces work together perfectly. We'll create medical technology to save lives. We'll create evacuation systems to protect civilians. The collaboration that followed amazed even the humans involved. Wispar's atmospheric manipulation techniques led to revolutionary shield technology that could disperse energy weapons. Zethkar's crystal song communication allowed instant, secure coordination across vast distances. Commander Rixtal's tactical knowledge combined with human innovation created defensive strategies that had never been seen before. But the real transformation was philosophical. For the first time in their history, humans had something more important to fight for than just survival. They were fighting for the right to be friends with aliens. They were fighting for the principle that different species could work together. They were fighting for a vision of the galaxy based on cooperation rather than conquest. In the shipyards orbiting Earth, human engineers worked alongside alien advisors to retrofit every available vessel. Cargo ships became medical transports. Research vessels became communication relays. Even civilian craft were equipped with basic defensive systems. General Morrison supervised the training of integrated crews. Human pilots learned to work with alien navigators. Alien technicians learned to maintain human equipment. Species that had never fought side by side before were becoming a unified force. This is impossible, reported Vorthon spy drones as they observed Earth's preparations. Organic species cannot achieve this level of coordination without a dominance hierarchy. But they were seeing it happen anyway. Humans and aliens worked together not because anyone forced them to, but because they wanted to. They shared resources, not because of treaties or contracts, but because they cared about each other's welfare. The most shocking development came when Earth's defense plans were finalized. Instead of focusing on destroying the enemy fleets, the humans prioritized protecting evacuation ships carrying council members to safety. They were willing to sacrifice military assets to ensure their alien friends could escape. They are going to die for us, Wispare said to Zethkar as they watched human pilots practice suicide runs to protect alien vessels. They have known us for only months, yet they are willing to give their lives for our safety. Zethkar's crystalline form dimmed with emotion. We searched the galaxy for 30 years looking for a species that understood cooperation. We found something more. We found a species that understands love. On the outer edge of the solar system, long-range sensors detected the approaching enemy fleets. The Vorthan Empire arrived first, their massive dreadnoughts spreading out in standard battle formation. The Skarn hunting packs followed, their ships howling electronic war cries across communication channels. The mechanized collective brought up the rear, their geometric vessels moving with cold precision. They expected to find a divided Earth begging for mercy. Instead, they encountered something that had never existed before in galactic history. A truly unified defense force of multiple species working together by choice, rather than conquest. Admiral Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the flagship Unity, watching the enemy forces take their positions. Around him, Human and alien crew members worked side by side, their faces calm and determined. "All stations report ready," called Commander Patel from the communications station. "Alien fleet status?" Rodriguez asked. "All Council vessels secured. In the inner defensive perimeter," reported the alien liaison officer. "They're ready to evacuate if necessary, but they've requested permission to stay and fight." Rodriguez smiled grimly. That was exactly what he had expected from their new friends. The Galactic Council had spent 30 years trying to avoid violence, but when their human allies were threatened, they were ready to stand and fight. "Signal the enemy fleets," Rodriguez ordered. "Let them know they're not facing primitive humans anymore. They're facing something new." The message was simple. You have come to destroy peace. Instead, you will witness its power. War Chief Kresh stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The human defense fleet should have been scattered and running by now. Instead, they moved with impossible coordination, their ships dancing between his massive dreadnoughts like insects avoiding a giant's fist. "How are they so fast?" demanded Admiral Thakron as another squad of human fighters slipped past their weapons fire. The answer came from the Vorthon technical officer studying sensor readings. "Their hulls are reinforced with some kind of crystalline structure. Our energy weapons are being dispersed instead of penetrating." Kresh's massive claws dug into his command chair. Zethkar's crystal technology merged with human engineering. The peaceful council members were sharing their defensive capabilities with these strange allies. What infuriated him more was watching human ships deliberately position themselves between Vorthon weapons and fleeing council vessels. A human destroyer sacrificed itself to protect Wisper's specialized atmospheric ship, ramming a Vorthon cruiser, rather than letting it get a clear shot at the gas entity's vulnerable containment system. "They're dying for aliens they met 2 months ago," Kresh reported to his fleet commanders, his voice filled with confusion. "This changes everything we know about interspecies relations." The Skarn hunting pack was having similar problems. Their terror tactics, designed to break enemy morale, were completely ineffective against humans who fought not just for survival, but for principles. When Skarn ships captured a council transport, human marines immediately launched boarding actions to rescue the alien prisoners. Hunt leader. Grax watched his warriors struggle against human soldiers who showed no fear, only determination. The humans fought with a ferocity that matched their compassion, using weapons and tactics that seemed designed specifically to counter Skarn advantages. "They know our hunting patterns," Grax realized as human fighters used coordinated swarm tactics to overwhelm his pack leaders. Someone taught them our weaknesses. That someone was Commander Rixtal, the Council's security chief. For the first time in his life, the insect-like warrior was using his tactical knowledge not to defend his own people, but to protect allies who had shown him genuine friendship. The mechanized collective faced an even more fundamental problem. Their automated systems were designed to fight predictable enemies who prioritized their own survival above all else. They had no programming to handle opponents who willingly sacrificed themselves for others. When human engineers gave their lives to repair council ships in the middle of battle, the AI network experienced something resembling confusion. Their decision matrices had no parameters for genuine altruism. Unable to predict enemy behavior, reported the lead AI to its collective consciousness. Their actions are not logical. But the humans weren't fighting based on cold logic. They were fighting for something the machines couldn't understand: the right to care about others. Every time a human pilot died protecting an alien vessel, every time human marines risked themselves to rescue council prisoners, they were making a statement that cooperation was worth dying for. Admiral Rodriguez coordinated the defense from the Bridge of Unity, watching the battle unfold across multiple screens. The casualties were heavy, but the defensive lines were holding. More importantly, the alien fleets were beginning to show signs of confusion. "Report from the outer perimeter," called Commander Patel. "The Centauri Defense Fleet is requesting permission to join the battle." Rodriguez paused. The Centauri were a neutral species that had refused council membership for decades. They had no obligation to help Earth or the Galactic Council. "Why?" he asked. "They say they've been monitoring our communications," Patel replied. Quote, "Any species willing to die for strangers deserves our support." Similar messages were arriving from across the galaxy. The Altarian Confederacy was sending medical ships. The Free Traders Union was dispatching supply vessels. Species that had never cooperated before were coming to help, not because they were asked to, but because they were inspired by what they were witnessing. The turning point came when a Vorthon patrol ship, badly damaged and cut off from the main fleet, sent an unexpected transmission. "Human vessels, this is Captain Veltar of the VIS Subjugator. My ship is dying and my crew is trapped. I know we are enemies, but please help us." The Bridge of Unity fell silent. Every tactical manual said to ignore enemy distress calls. Every military protocol said to prioritize your own forces. But Dr. Chen, monitoring communications from Earth, gave a different order. "Rescue them," she said simply. That's what friends do. The rescue operation was broadcast across all communication channels. Human ships, in the middle of a desperate battle for survival, diverted resources to save enemy crew members. They pulled Vorthon warriors from burning ships and treated their wounds alongside human casualties. War Chief Kresh watched the rescue unfold on his main screen. His own species would have left damaged ships to die rather than risk additional losses. The humans were saving enemies who had come to destroy them. "This is madness," he whispered, but it was a madness that was spreading. Other Vorthon ships began to hesitate before firing on human vessels. Skarn hunters found themselves questioning orders to slaughter beings who showed such unexpected mercy. Even some mechanized collective units began to malfunction as their programming struggled to process this new data. The real shock came when Captain Veltar, after being treated by human medics, made an announcement to his own fleet. "Warriors of the Empire," he broadcast on Vorthon frequencies, "I have seen something that challenges everything we believe. These humans could have left us to die. Instead, they risked their own lives to save us. They fight not for conquest, but for the right to show kindness to strangers." More Vorthon ships began to withdraw from combat, not in defeat, but in confusion. How do you fight an enemy who treats you better than your own allies do? The Skarn pack leaders faced a similar crisis. Their entire culture was built on the belief that mercy was weakness, but they were seeing humans show mercy while simultaneously demonstrating incredible strength. The philosophical contradiction was tearing apart their understanding of the universe. Hunt leader Grax found himself face to face with a human marine who had just rescued a captured council member. The human was wounded, bleeding from multiple cuts, but had refused medical treatment until the alien prisoner was safe. "Why?" Grax demanded. "Why save one who is not your own kind?" The human, barely conscious, managed to smile. "Because that's what friends do," he said before collapsing. The words echoed in Grax's mind as his warriors carried the unconscious human to their medical bay. They were supposed to kill him. But how do you kill someone who just taught you what friendship means? As the battle raged across Earth's solar system, something unprecedented was happening. The three great military powers of the galaxy were not just being defeated by superior technology or tactics. They were being defeated by an idea. The idea that different species could genuinely care about each other. The idea that cooperation was more powerful than conquest. The idea that showing mercy to enemies was not weakness, but the ultimate expression of strength. Admiral Rodriguez watched his tactical display as more and more enemy ships ceased fire. Some were withdrawing entirely. Others were requesting permission to join the Earth Defense Fleet. A few were even turning their weapons on their former allies who continued to attack human and council vessels. "Sir," Commander Patel reported, his voice filled with amazement, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 Vorthon ships, 3 Skarn hunting vessels, and, sir, an entire mechanized collective squadron just asked for asylum." Rodriguez leaned back in his command chair, hardly believing what he was hearing. They had won a battle not through superior firepower, but by demonstrating something the galaxy had forgotten was possible. They had shown that peace was not naive idealism. It was the most powerful force in the universe, capable of transforming enemies into allies and turning conquest into cooperation. The Galactic Council's 30-year mission was finally succeeding. Not because they had found a species willing to listen to their message of peace, but because they had found a species willing to live it. 6 months after the battle, Earth's solar system had become something unique in galactic history. Ships from 23 different species orbited the blue planet, their crews working together on projects that would have been impossible just a year before. Captain Veltar of the former Vorthon Imperial Navy stood in the observation deck of the station New Harmony, watching human and alien engineers collaborate on the construction of a massive medical facility. His own warriors worked alongside the same humans they had tried to kill during the battle. "Still having trouble believing it?" asked Dr. Chen as she joined him at the viewing port. Veltar's scaled features moved in what humans had learned was a Vorthon smile. "My species conquered 17 worlds through strength and fear," he said. "You conquered our hearts through kindness and medical care. I am still trying to understand how this is possible." The transformation had been gradual but undeniable. Captured Vorthon soldiers had been treated better than their own empire treated its citizens. They received medical care from human doctors working alongside council healers. They were housed comfortably, fed well, and spoken to with respect rather than interrogated as prisoners. When Captain Veltar had been treated for his injuries by the same human medic whose ship he had been trying to destroy, something fundamental had shifted in his understanding of the universe. "How do you maintain hatred for people who save your life?" "The hardest part," Veltar continued, "is explaining this to my homeworld. The Imperial Command cannot understand why their warriors refuse to return. They think you have brainwashed us." Dr. Chen chuckled softly. "Have we?" "Yes," Veltar replied. "Seriously. You have brainwashed us into believing that cooperation is more satisfying than conquest. It is a very effective form of mind control." Similar conversations were happening throughout the solar system. Former Skarn hunters worked alongside human marines, learning about military honor and the protection of civilians. Their entire culture had been built on the belief that only the strong deserved to survive. But humans had shown them something stronger than individual power, the strength that came from caring about others. Hunt leader Grax had become one of the most vocal converts to human philosophy. His warriors now served as elite rescue specialists, using their hunting skills to save lives rather than take them. They wore human-designed patches on their armor that read, "Protectors of the Pack," in both Skarn and English. The Mechanized Collective had presented the most interesting challenge. Their artificial intelligences struggled to process concepts like mercy and friendship, but they were learning. Human programmers worked with AI systems to develop new decision-making protocols that included variables for compassion and cooperation. "We have calculated the efficiency gains from mutual aid," announced Primary Node 7 during a council meeting. "Illogical as it seems, helping others produces better outcomes than competing with them." Ambassador Zethkar stood before the United Nations General Assembly, addressing not just humanity but representatives from 31 species who had come to Earth seeking what they had witnessed during the battle: true cooperation. For 300 years, the Galactic Council sought to bring peace to the stars. His crystalline form resonated with translated emotion. "We believed we had failed because no one wanted our vision of unity. We were wrong. We failed because we were trying to convince species to change rather than simply demonstrating what was possible." The assembly hall was packed with beings of every shape and size imaginable. Humans sat beside crystalline council members, gas cloud entities, insectoid warriors, and mechanical constructs. All of them were there because they had seen something that changed their understanding of what civilization could be. Dr. Sarah Chen, now serving as Earth's first galactic ambassador, announced the formation of the Terran Council Alliance. Not a government or empire, but a voluntary association of species committed to mutual aid and shared exploration. "We're not asking anyone to give up their independence or their culture," she explained. "We're simply offering something that has never existed before. A place in the galaxy where cooperation is valued more than conquest, where different species can work together because they want to, not because they're forced to." The response was overwhelming. Species that had been enemies for centuries requested mediation services. Entire star systems asked for protection from aggressive neighbors. Most surprisingly, many requested to join the alliance not for protection or resources, but simply to be part of something positive. The mechanized collective sent its first non-automated representative in centuries, seeking to understand how biological species had achieved something their vast computational networks could not. Genuine. Care for entities outside their own system. Your organic cooperation protocols are more efficient than our logical frameworks, admitted the AI delegate. We request permission to study your friendship algorithms. Even former enemies began to reconsider their positions. The outer colonies of the Vorthan Empire, witnessing the treatment of their captured soldiers, began secret communications with Earth. The concept of strength through unity rather than dominance started spreading across space like a virus of hope. The transformation was not without challenges. Some species remained committed to the old ways of conquest and domination. The inner worlds of the Vorthan Empire declared the alliance a threat to galactic order. Rogue Skarn packs continued their hunting expeditions. Several machine civilizations viewed organic cooperation as a threat to logical efficiency. But for every species that resisted, 2 more requested alliance membership. The promise of genuine friendship proved more attractive than threats of conquest. The most significant moment came when Earth launched its first interstellar colony ship. But this was not a vessel of conquest or even exploration in the traditional sense. The Hope's promise was designed as a mobile rescue station, capable of providing aid to any species in need regardless of their political affiliations. Admiral Rodriguez, now commanding the Alliance fleet, stood on the bridge as the colony ship prepared for its maiden voyage. The crew was integrated with humans and aliens working side by side. Their mission was to establish a refuge station in the neutral zone, where species fleeing authoritarian regimes could find sanctuary. Ready for departure, reported Commander Patel, now serving as first officer of the integrated fleet. All stations, report ready, added Wisp Air, his gas form shifting to colors that indicated excitement and anticipation. As the ship engaged its hyperspace drive, Rodriguez reflected on how much had changed. A year ago, Earth had been alone in the galaxy, dreaming of contact with alien life. Now they were leading an alliance dedicated to making those dreams reality for everyone. The Galactic Council's greatest success had not been convincing the galaxy to accept them. It had been finding a species that helped them become what they had always aspired to be. Genuine peacemakers in a universe that had forgotten what peace looked like. On Earth, children of multiple species played together in schools, designed for integrated education. Human and alien scientists collaborated on projects that would benefit everyone. Artists from different worlds created new forms of expression that transcended species barriers. But perhaps most importantly, the concept of friendship between species was spreading. Young beings across the galaxy were growing up believing that cooperation was not just possible but natural. They were learning that diversity was a source of strength, not a cause for conflict. Ambassador Zethkar stood in the crystal gardens that had been built for his species in the heart of Geneva. Around him, human children and young aliens from a dozen worlds played together, their laughter creating a harmony that needed no translation. The galaxy is changing, he said to Dr. Chen as she joined him in the garden. Not through conquest or conversion, but through example. Species are choosing cooperation because they have seen it work. Dr. Chen watched a human child teaching a young Vorthan how to play soccer while an insectoid Skarn youth carefully tended to flowering plants that came from Wispair's homeworld. Maybe that's all peace ever needed, she said. Not treaties or laws, but the simple demonstration that friendship is possible. As the sun set over Earth, the lights of alien ships could be seen in the sky. No longer invaders or strangers, but friends and allies. The dream of galactic peace that had seemed impossible just a year before was becoming reality. One friendship at a time. The Galactic Council had spent 3 centuries searching for a species that understood cooperation. Instead, they had found something even more valuable, a species that understood love, and in the end, that had made all the difference. In the vastness of space, Hope's promise continued on its journey to establish humanity's first interstellar outpost. Not a fortress or a trading post, but a beacon of hope for any being seeking, proof that different species could work together. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders. Now, for the first time in eons, it was also full of friends.